so I'm in the business of helping people clarify their stories in business and fix their terrible sales presentations. Show of hands, who here has seen a bad sales presentation? All right, so we all know what's wrong with. So what are typical problems we see with sales presentations?
Out of alignment with what the audience wants to hear.
Out of alignment. What else? Canned. What else? Too long. Right. What else?
It doesn't listen.
Doesn't listen. Yeah. So I actually started this business as a side hustle because I was working, I had a career and a half, building a family. By the way, these are the notes I took in this first session just to prove that I'm getting huge value from this. These are mind-blowing pieces that I'm going to be on LinkedIn talking about, the empathy map, clarity versus persuasion. I mean, these are awesome concepts. This is chicken scratch, but these represent some amazing ideas that are really adding value to me. So just to pivot real quick, my family, since David showed his family, I thought I had to show mine. My son is going to NYU. He's a jazz singer. And my daughter is now in Colorado College studying microbiology. And now, yeah, that's her, like 2 weekends ago. And so this morning, she texted me where she's at. So she's at Dartmouth at the Stephen Leach Pancreatic Cancer Research, I can't even say it. She's actually gonna find a cure for cancer for us. You know, she's focused on pancreatic cancer. And so she can't spell, but I think she'll figure out a cure for cancer. So I also, in part of this talk, part of making a conversation, I like to use what David was using. So if you can just take out your phones, this is a good way for you to type out your questions. Go to slido.com, and when you're there, put in that tag, HNXT, as a way to get into this. And you should be able to, let's see, switch to presentation, and switch to polls. Yeah. You should be able to vote on this. So this is the first time I've been in Nashville. Raise your hand, any first timers? All right, so I heard that these people actually live in Nashville. I'd love to bump into them, but we're gonna be using this technology just to engage. So I wanted you to get used to it. So you guys, this is a new question. Some of you said you've seen what a bad sales presentation looks like. Who here delivers presentations? Right? So often, sometimes, let's just see who in the room. Is it rarely? Is it never? Okay, so it's often. All right, cool. Let's go back to who do you want to see here in Nashville? All right, Carrie Underwood is taking the lead. Let's go back to that later. So think about your sales presentation. You want to have a conversation with your audience. Today, what does your current sales presentation lead with? What are you leading with in your sales presentation? The problem, about us, a joke, the solution. So what this tells is there's different stages of a presentation, different aspects of the story or the conversation. And what I've learned in my career, and also from doing a lot of study on what works, and also from looking at Gong.io research that has actually looked at millions of sales demos and conversations, what works and what doesn't work from actually the words that are being told and the parts of the conversation. So we'll talk about that more later. All right, let's go to presentation. All right, so in the hour and 30 minutes or hour and whatever we have together, this is my promise to you. We're gonna cover 10 principles of presenting solutions that I've learned in my career and that a lot of you here probably know, but I'm going to go through them in 5 minutes, really fast, so you can sort of get them under your skin and we can talk about them. Then we're going to spend some time talking about how important it is to clarify the problem that you're solving for your people. We're going to talk about who your people are and what you're asking them to do. Then we're going to spend some time on my promise to you is, wouldn't it be cool if you can come out of this session with your 3-word story or a 2-word story? So like Mr. Hutchins was doing, very powerful for me was time spent thinking about why I'm here. And that's a really powerful story to anchor us when we're doing our lives, I suppose, or even doing our businesses. The three-word story that we're going to be focusing on is the story of your people, of your customers, and clarifying that story. And the last part, if we have time, we're going to help you with what might be your presentation recipe. Your recipe that you can go to and have conversations with. And we're going to talk about that recipe. So my goal today is for you to walk out of this session with a story, a 3-word or 5-word story that you could use, a really good understanding of what your customer's problem is, and a recipe that you can use for your sales presentations. All right. So, quick poll. What is the first step in a decision process? And the reason why this is important to think about is because instead of thinking about how you want to sell or how you want to sell your ideas internally or sell to your customers, we first have to think about how it is that we buy. How do we buy things and how do we decide what we're going to buy? So what's the first step in any decision process, in a human decision process? Is it to assess what our current state is, our current situation? Is it to determine the worth of what's possible? Is it to just see what's possible? So I think we all pretty much have an intuitive knowledge that yes, we need to first, before we make any decision, we need to assess what's going on right now. And that's why in the recipe we're going to get to this, is that has to be the first step to a presentation. All right, 10 principles in 5 minutes. Bad news for you people. No one wants your solution. What do I mean by that? If they don't want your solution, what do they want? What do people want? If they don't want your solution. What? Results. The best solution for them, which does what for them? What do people?
They want their pain to go away.
Yeah, they want their pain to go away. Yeah, exactly. So no one wants your solution. Number 2, sad news. Nobody cares about you or your company or your solution, how great it is.
Is this the feel-good part of this presentation? I'm just asking. I just want to clarify.
This is not the feel-good section, but this is a principle. So what do people care about? Your colleagues, your customers, what do they care about? Themselves. What else do they care about? Their problems. What they're trying to accomplish. Situations they're trying to avoid. Principle number 2. All right, 30 seconds. Principle number 3. Who here has some technology or system or a process that they demo? Okay, so principle number 3, a demo without discovery is just what? Guessing. You're just guessing. What do I mean by this? Anyone? What does this mean? You have to know them. Have to know. So who has seen a demo of software they show like 50 features? If you need this, it can do that. If it need this, it can do that. Do those work? No. As opposed to a demo that shows, well, I heard you say that you need this, this, and that. Let me show you how those 3 things are done. Much better, right? Because it relates to, yes?
I love demos that you get, and they do an ROI thing.
Yes.
It's like, you have no idea what I need, what I've got.
Yeah. Yeah. Premature return on investment story, absolutely. Feature dumping kills sales. I mentioned Gong.io. They've done research on this. And you can see just after the 3rd or 4th feature that you talk about, the win rate drops. This is not intuition here. This is actual data. Number 4, the best presentation is a conversation. This is why I'm in the business I'm in. I love having conversations. I hate being pitched to. You know, I hate it. I love having a conversation. I think people learn better in conversations, roundtable discussions instead of pitches. Number 5, principle, people believe in the things that they themselves decide, not what you tell them. I don't believe anything people tell me. I believe what I want to believe. I work out a few days a week, and my workout boot camp instructor said to me, Greg, you need to see a chiropractor. And I'm like, I do not need to see a chiropractor. Thank you very much. You can keep your advice. And he said, no, you really need to. I'm telling you, you should. Whenever someone says you should do something, they're essentially telling you what you should believe. But I actually made an appointment myself with a chiropractor because I know I need to, but not because he told me, all right? But I needed to decide that. Number 6, the best sellers focus on the pain of status quo. Just the best sellers focus on what's happening today. And is it okay if we fast forward a year from now or 5 years from now and nothing has changed? Is that okay with you? So this is also backed up by research from Gong.io. Number 7, successful reps approach their presentation or demo with a structure in mind. A structure could look like, what are the stories that I need to be having a discussion about during the 30 minutes that we have together? That's a structure. Another bit of Gong.io research that actually listens to conversations and maps out what some of these stories are. Fantastic research, by the way. Number 8, how you sell has become more important than what you sell. So what does that mean? Anyone? Can anyone tell if this is an iPhone or a Samsung phone? So from a distance, solutions often look exactly alike. From a distance. So it is definitely the stories that we tell about the solutions we provide and how we engage our customers that have us win or lose. Number 9, questions you're asked are shadows of the real questions people have. This is something I've learned time and time again. When someone asks you a question, does your thing that you're talking about, will it help us in this area? And so, how many people here have heard answers that sound like, oh, absolutely, it will, and as a matter of fact, let me tell you about this other thing or how that works. Who has heard those types of answers? Right. Versus taking this principle on board, if someone says, how does this work with the thing that we're already doing? And you answered briefly, but then followed up with, why do you ask? So it's the question behind the question which typically gets to why people are asking questions. Huge principle in presenting solutions. And number 10, slides. I mean, don't beat on slides too much, because we are visual creatures. We talked about how important visuals are. So slides, even visuals, are your, I call them supporting actor in your presentation. Never send your slides to act alone. If someone says to you, just send me your thing, just send it to me, we'll look at it and we'll talk, do not send them, because what are they going to do with it? Nothing. Okay, send them to your website, send them documents. All right, those are the 10. Let's put up a question here. What makes a great sales presentation? And this could apply to lots of presentations you guys are doing. What makes a great sales presentation? Is it the resounding applause? Is it nodding heads? Yes. Is it a go-forward decision? Is it applause? Is it awesome graphics? So what I love about TED Talks is, yes, ideas worth spreading. But is that enough? Is spreading an idea enough for you and your organization? Just show of hands. Is spreading ideas enough? No. So TED Talks, while they may be entertaining, they don't do anything. Raise your hand if you watch a TED Talk and has changed one thing about what you do in your life. Good. In fact, the power pause, I remember that one, sort of that TED Talk. I try that on, I'm trying it on now, by the way. But besides that, no. So in your solution, it's about change. All right, so what do we have here? A rapturing story makes a great sales presentation. Everyone is saying that, but I think what makes a great sales presentation is action. What actually happened as a result of that great rapturing story? Did anything change from before to after? For me, that's the most important piece. All right. So, clarifying the problem. This is the workshop part. So, I think in business, you should be telling a story about your customer's transformation. Transformation story from about where they are today and versus where they want to go. And like we talked about, one of those principles, the best sellers focus on the pain of status quo, their current situation. And so a customer-centric story might sound something like this. Many providers struggle to fill in the blank because blah, 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 which impacts fill in the blanks, like Mad Lib's game, right? Causing what? This speaks about the problem, what it impacts in their organization, and what it's causing. The solution we deliver, meaning you're giving them something, some idea, some process, that does something which turns, there's the transformation bit in green, who they were, stuck, inefficient, manual process, unaccountable, whatever you want to fill in that, into what, the future state, who are able to achieve. So you got to basically help your customers write that story in your presentation. And in your presentation, you need to think of yourself as the guide, the trusted advisor that's helping them transform. And I think in selling for so many years, what's allowed me to be successful in sales is to the degree to which I could involve myself and my team in my customers' change, in that transformation story, is the degree to which we differentiated ourselves from our competition, and whether we won or we didn't win. So there are going to be three things I want you to write down on a piece of paper. Number one, so I want you to think about, you'll have a few minutes to do this, who are your people? Who are your people that you are helping? So think of your people, let's say there's three different people. Well, we help patients, we help providers, and we help payers. So our people could be a group. So imagine your people to be on the battlefield. And there you are with them on the battlefield. Who are your people? So think about who your people are. Next question on a piece of paper, so write down who are my people in one question. Next question is, how has the world changed for them? So the change in the world is happening. It's undeniable. And those changes create pressure and tension for your people. And your understanding of how that tension and pressure is affecting them is going to allow you to help them better. So answer that question on the piece of paper. Next question, this is number 3. What is their problem? And their problem has a few aspects. What is the thing? What does it look like? And I love that empathy map that came up earlier. What does that look like? What does it look like to them? How do they see that problem? What do they say about that problem? What do they hear about that problem? What do they do about it? Maybe nothing. And who is having that problem? That speaks to who the people are, who your people are. So every problem has an impact. Who in the organization is that impacting? And see if you might even think about what the root cause of that problem is. So it's almost like, think about the doctor. If you go in to see an oncologist, you think the oncologist is just going to, a bad oncologist may ask you some dumb questions, but what might a really great oncologist ask? Any oncologists here? Right. A doctor that really knows their stuff is going to ask very specific questions that speak to the problem that you have. All right. And what do they want? Next question, write down, what do your people want? So that would be their goals, their future state, their aspiration. So we talked a little bit about this with different lenses before. So now with this lens, your lens looking at your people, who they are, what their problem is, and what do they want. All right. So now that you've probably written on the piece of paper who your people are, maybe it's the type of organization, what their responsibility is, what do they want, and what is their problem. I want you to pair up with someone who you haven't paired up with before, just one person. And we're going to do this whole workshop just with that one person, okay? And I want you to take turns and share with them who your people are, what's their problem, and what do they want. So we're going to take 5 minutes to do that. So, who would like to say what they heard from their partner? Who would like to answer these questions about what they heard their partner say about who their people are and what their people's problem is and what their people want? Who would like to share in that way? So you're not sharing for yourself, you're saying what you heard. Yep.
All right, my partner was Don. I don't have her last name. That was easy. Don Van. And he has IT and security firm. So his job and his presentation is to relieve his prospects' fear. They're in a state of fear and concern, anxiety. His job is to help them take it away.
Okay, so who were his people, you said, were IT?
No, he's an IT. He's an IT, but his customer are medical practices.
Okay.
All right.
So medical practices are the people. They're scared.
Yes, they're scared of IT security, of breaches, data security, compliance, and his job is to help alleviate all that and give them a very secure environment.
So they want it alleviated.
Yes.
Right. Okay, cool. Cool. So what does that problem look like for them? Maybe you want to say, Don, what does that problem show up as? If you were to use the empathy map, what does it look like? What are they hearing? What are they saying about it?
Well, what does it look like? It looks like, well, as an example, there was a recent issue of the practice up in Michigan where two doctors had a breach, and they decided that it wasn't worth the time and effort to do a cleanup. They just retired. So what does it look like? It looks like potentially losing their retirement, not being able to provide for their employees, having to answer to the OCR, a variety of scary things that they don't want to have to face.
Right, huge. Great, thank you. So who else would like to share what they heard their partner answer these questions as? Were we listening? All right. Would you like to share how you would answer these questions?
So I work for a company called Premise Health, and we work with primarily large employers and improve access to healthcare, which looks like setting up an on-site health center directly at the employer's physical location, so employees can access, preventive care, primary care while they're at work, so they don't have to go out into the community, make an appointment, wait for an appointment, take time off work. So our people are primarily employers, and their problem is rising costs of healthcare, and those costs continue to rise. I said it was actually two problems. It was the cost of healthcare and then the cost of unhealthy employees.
Right. And your solution helps resolve those problems?
Correct.
Great.
Yes. And so what do they want? They want, one, an effective solution that's also an effective solution to get their population healthier, but they also want that to be cost effective.
Great.
So,
Great. Thank you, Bethany.
yes.
Who else would like to say who your people are? What is their problem and what do they want?
I'll talk about my partner. My partner here. He works on process improvements, and his people are the physicians or medical care people, as well as the customers that come in. The problem is they have too many clicks, so of getting through the system. What's your insurance? So they're preoccupied on the computer, including the physician. When you go into the doctor's office, he
Right.
is constantly going through all of those clicks. And the customer or patient feels that the doctor is disengaged, and the doctor actually, the physician also wants more engagement. And what do they want is they want it all to go away.
Right. Well, they want to spend more quality time.
They want more quality
with their
time.
patients, sounds
Yes.
like. Less laptop time, more
Right.
patient time.
Right.
Right, great, thank you.
Yep.
Who else? We have time for one more. Did you have your hand raised, Brian?
I did. did, but I can't. Like, I'm happy to go. Round us out.
Thank you. My voice is very quiet. Excellent. So the sharing here, my people, I took a little look internally. My people are senior level business stakeholders at Humana, where I work, who are trying to engage strategy consultants to help influence their business strategy. Their problem is that they feel like they don't have a clear internal path to go about doing that. They know who they want to talk to. They don't have a clear path to do it, and where they are trying to navigate internal process, it doesn't move at the velocity that it needs to keep the business running. What they want, clarity and transparency on that process, how to engage well, how to make sure they're picking the right third-party strategic consultants to support their need, and they want it done very quickly.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Well done. All right, so as we segue, let's talk about now the purpose of your sales presentation. And you could be selling an idea here or a new process. All right, so what is the purpose of your sales presentation? Is it to transmit information? Is it to create a trusted relationship? Is it to deliver a performance? Is it to open the minds to possibilities? Or is it other? So it's important to think about what the purpose is of your presentation as you're creating it. It'll help you clarify what the recipe needs to be. So we got a tie here between open minds to possibilities and the only way things can change, again, that principle, I forget what number it is, but people believe in the things that they themselves decide, not the things you tell them. So it would be a huge success if the purpose of your presentation is to open someone's mind. So I think those two make sense. If you can open someone's mind and create the trust that's needed. All right? But it's interesting that transmit information is kind of low down on the totem pole here. For sure.
Because you really have to transmit the information.
You do, right? So why do you think the transmit information is so low? Anyone?
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
Because that's just to serve the top two goals.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And who here before going into a meeting has looked on a website and got all the information they needed in 30 seconds prior to going to that meeting? Yeah. So getting information transferred is cheap. It's fast. Information is cheap. What's expensive? Anyone? Trust. Yep. Trust takes time. Yep. For sure. All right. Good work. Good, good, good. All right. Now on to the three-word story. Can it be done? Can it be done? Are you guys up to the challenge? Say yes. So look, you can anywhere between 2 and 5 words. I'm going to give you between 2 and 5, but I'm going to give you a structure of how to do this. So here's the thing. You want to create a hashtag. You know, who here can think of a hashtag that has moved them? Besides Nike's hashtag, just do it. Think any other hashtags that you've heard that you've realized that, wow, that's had an effect on everything. Anyone?
Boston strong.
Boston strong, 2 words. Live strong. What else?
Hashtag MAGA.
Yes, yes. Politics aside.
Expressing an opinion.
No. Politics aside, that Make America Great Again had an impact that got a man elected president. So 5 words tells a big story, right? 5 words. What other hashtags? Black Lives Matter, right? Me Too. What other hashtags? Life is good. Yeah. So there's 2 categories that all these hashtags fit into. We're going to be talking about 2 types. But wouldn't it be cool? Wouldn't it be awesome if you could summarize your transformation story that you are all about in your business and helping your people? Wouldn't it be cool if you can walk out of this room with your hashtag that is essentially the seed form of your entire presentation, of your entire story, of your entire mission to help your people? Raise your hand if you think that would be cool. All right, let's see if we can do this. Let's give it a shot, all right? So I'm gonna give you some instruction as to how I think you can do it. And I learned about this from Dr. Michelle Mazur, who's a friend and wrote a book called The 3-Word Rebellion. Highly recommend the book. where you can take this concept and work on it on your own time. We're going to give it a shot here in this workshop right here. So the first thing you have to get clear on, and as I'm talking here, I want you to write down the answer to this question. What are you rebelling against? So like, think of yourself, you're on the battlefield with your people, and you're trying to help them. You're trying to help them accomplish a goal, slaughter the dragon, whatever the issue is, overcome status quo, evolve, whatever it is that you're trying to help them with, overcome the fear. What are you rebelling against? In a way, who's the villain of this story, right? What are you rebelling against? Give this some thought. We're talking about change. You're helping your customers change from what they're doing today to what you know they need to be doing in order for them to be successful. So you're rebelling, right? So what are you rebelling against? So take a minute and jot down your thoughts. Just stream of consciousness. What are you rebelling against? So for my business, I'm rebelling against boring one-way presentations that do nothing. So my 3-word rebellion for Pitch Kitchen is design the conversation. Right now I'm actually morphing it to design breakthrough conversations. All right? So that's my business. So think about what you are rebelling against. All right. Next question. Think about, we're talking about change here, right? Helping your people change from what they're doing today, which is causing them stress, anxiety, which is impacting the bottom line, not allowing them to be who they want to be and do what they want to do. There's Dorothy there, wants to get home to Kansas. So write down now the answer to this question, which is, what change do you want to create for your people? What change, if you said to them, you talk to them about this change, they'd be like, yeah, we need to do that. I need to be doing that. I agree with that. Just do it. Yeah, I need to get off the couch. I need to work out. Nike spoke to me, right, in that way. All those hashtags we talked about are speaking to the change that they know their people want to create. All right, take a minute now and write down, what change do you want to create the world that they want to live in, that you want to live in with your people? What would that look like? Just free write, because in the writing you'll find words that you're going to use. You're going to use those when you get to your 3-word story, but just free write right now. Get down words on the paper. What change do you want to create? Hashtag, there's no place like home. All right. So let me give you a couple examples. This is a customer that we worked with recently where we helped them craft their 1, 2, 3, I guess there's 4-word there, 4-word story. And this is all about this consumerization of healthcare. And you can see there on the left, there's a bunch of possibilities that spoke to the battle cry, meaning the change that they are encouraging their people to take. They want to engage patients right. They want to optimize self-care. They want to enable self-care. They want to simplify patient engagement. They want to help doctors enable their patients to communicate. They want to turn patients into customers. They want to treat patients like customers. So you see all of those possibilities could work, right? The one that they settled on was the one at the bottom, engage your patient to consumers. Personally, I don't like that as much. CEO loved it. That said, it's real life, right? So, so there's two camps. There is what Dr. Michelle Mazur calls the battle cry kind of story, which is there you are in the field of battle with your people, and you're helping them, and you're pointing to the thing you want to change, and you're calling them to action. All right? Activate, connect, engage, treat, make, optimize, enable, simplify. What are all those? Those words are action words. Those are verbs. All right? So the battle cry must start with a verb. Simon Sinek's start with why. It's a seed form of a whole philosophy. All right? So there's another type of three-word story that Dr. Mazur talks about, which is naming the change. And notice those are nouns, and it's describing what the world would look like if your people made that happen. Whole patient life cycle, connected patients, engaged patients, patients as customers. That's describing what the change looks like. So your 3 to 5 word story will be one of these two. You can choose, right? Any questions about this way of approaching your story? All right. So now take a few minutes and try out some hashtags. It'll either be a battle cry starting with a verb, an action word, and you may look at some of the words you wrote. Are there any action words there? Be encouraging. Start with a verb. I personally like the battle cry version of this better. It's easier. It's more direct of how you're asking people to change. But naming the change could work good too. What would the world look like if they took your advice and did the thing that you're talking about and made that change? So just an example, can I call Joseph? Joseph, you and I were talking about this earlier. Want to share what that looked like for you in this process? Do you have a couple of those examples?
Yeah, I think the one that you landed on was make clinical outcomes matter.
And why would that work for you? Make clinical outcomes matter? Interesting, okay.
Yeah, so I'm over quality data strategy. So being able to clearly and accurately portray the high quality, high value patient care that we provide to our patients would be helpful to payers, our physician partners, and the patients that look at us.
Okay, great. Excellent. So now I'd like you on a big piece of paper, take out another piece of paper and write in big letters on the back. Give yourself 3 or 4 attempts at your hashtags. 3 or 4, give it a stab. And just like David Hutchins did earlier, we're going to do something similar. You're going to walk around the room. Once you write 3 or 4 of these down on a piece of paper, and you're going to walk around in silence, just showing it to people. And when I call time, you're going to group up with 3 people just like we did before, and you're going to talk about why you think that story captures the change that you're asking your people to make and why it will help them overcome the monster. Who wants to share their 3-word story and why they like it, why it speaks to their people, and why you think it helps them change? Yes?
My first one was eliminate complexity. We talk a lot in terms of healthcare and how complex it is, even in totality, but even within the organization and the level of each of our companies, we have our own complexities that are actually underneath there, and they continue to multiply on it.
Right. So that eliminate complexity is what you're screaming at the top of your lungs when you've got a room full of people on the battlefield looking at that monster, which is just a gazillion systems that don't talk to each other, 101 things in the way of actually delivering on great outcomes for patients.
Yeah, and I guess focus on the good when you're in a battlefield is not a good thing to say.
Oh, sorry. I'm using a metaphor. Forgive me. Bad choice of metaphor. What would be a better metaphor? I can't think of. Complexity is a monster. Yeah. Yes, monster. Who else? Like to share their 3-word, 5-word story? Yes.
Healthcare is killing.
Healthcare is killing us.
And then the other is...
That's speaking to, that's speaking to the problem that hopefully will incent people to say, you know what, that's right. We need to change that.
Right. More care, less cost.
More care, less cost. I like that.
That's prevention. It's healthcare.
It's positive. It's positive too.
Yeah.
So I like the second one better than the first one. Who here likes the second one better than the first one? I know I do.
The second one's a solution to the first one.
That's it.
Yeah.
Great. Who else? Yeah.
More awesome you. More awesome you and create your world. It's kind of in...
Which one do you like better and why?
Well, the more awesome you one I actually kind of came up with a while back and bought the domain. But the create your world kind of came out of this exercise, and the basic context was, you know, the world is set up for you to fail. You know, there's endless temptations for you to do the wrong thing, and so I guess the call to action is create the world that sets you up for success.
Right.
Yeah.
So just so you know, only you know if it's going to work for your people. Like, just think of Just Do It without the context of Nike. If you didn't know that Just Do It had anything to do with a shoe manufacturer, it would make no sense, right? So it's okay if we're all listening to that, like Create Your World, and we don't really understand the context. But if you think that your people, if they heard that essence of your story and of your presentation, if you were to boil down your whole talk into 3 words, and you said those words and they got it, then that would be a huge win. So you got to decide that. Great. Who else would like to share what they came up with?
So my 3-word hashtag would be own your wellness. So as we look at sick care, moving into health, wellness, and fitness, we have to embrace, from a behavioral change standpoint, our own wellness. So you have to own it. So
I love the own your wellness. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to buy that domain right now.
Now, I haven't owned my own yet, but I'm just as long as you own yours, we're all good.
Great. Who else?
I've got one that might be useful. I've been using this for a while, and it seems to resonate, but I'll welcome your feedback. Never stop growing.
Never stop growing. I like it. Any other feedback on that?
Yeah, so I guess something that I was talking to Greg about earlier, one of the things that I feel is important for a lot of these hashtags is a stronger, like, emotional component.
Yeah.
And so, for example, in my process of getting to, like, more awesome you, like, never stop growing was kind of one of those things, but it felt like it didn't have enough of that emotional impact. Not that more awesome you is awesome, but you know, that's kind of the thought process.
Yeah, so I mean, I would say that this is an evolving process for you as you think about who your people are and what change you want to help them with. These words you're going to start hearing them as you take that beer and as you talk to your friends and your family. And as it comes out of your mouth, pay attention to how you're describing what you want them to do, what you need them to do so that they can be successful. And if they're successful, you're successful. They're your partner in achieving the success, right? That's the way that any great salesperson or someone that's helping an organization would think, right? So, here we have a question in Slido. In one word, what is the most critical element of a successful presentation? What's that? The check. Yeah, for sure. But maybe you're not selling here. Maybe it's a successful presentation to get people on board with change. So I was having a conversation with Lynn earlier about persuasion versus clarity. And I love that conversation. And what just popped up on the screen is clarity. And I love that. Lynn, what would you say about that?
Well, I said it in the context of coming from a marketing background that persuading people to do things seems to be the mission. And I think things have shifted in the last 10 years that people want transparency and clarity from companies.
They do. They do. From anyone here, I've sold a lot in my career, and you know, I don't have any Jedi mind tricks. I can't really persuade people. I find the best relationships I create with customers are when I am able to be clear about how it is that I could help them get from where they are today, what they're doing today, and how they're doing things today, to where they want to go, what they want to be doing, and how they want to do it. So it's clarity. For me, it's all about clarity. So I love that. So influence. I think influence is a byproduct of that clarity that you can create. Action for sure. Like, okay, so now what do you want to do? So we talked about all this. We talked about your problem. We talked about how the world has changed. And we talked about, you shared with me what all the things that you think you can do by this solution or this change that we talked about. So what are you going to do? What now? What's next? So it gets people to a decision, right? So action is definitely a mark of a successful presentation. All right. So good work. One point I want to make is, whose story is it? We did work earlier with Mr. Hutchins this morning to dial into what our story is, meaning, what's my story? Why am I here? And that's really powerful, and it really connects us to the emotional ground from which we work. The work that we're doing now is a story about your customer. So in sales, it's all about your customer, and make sure that your 3 or 5 word story or the presentation arc, the story arc you're creating, is about their journey. All right, last section. We are here. So this is about your presentation recipe, and I want to give you guys an opportunity to craft a 3-part presentation and a recipe so that you can go back to your people and you can have a framework for an awesome, insanely persuading presentation to get people to change. So this is how I do it. This is how I advise my customers to do it, is involving yourself in your customer's story. And what I love about the Lion King story is that character, Rafiki. That's your role in your organization, your customers. If you're helping people change, that's your role. What other characters can you suggest in movies and stories could you identify with as this role that you're taking on? Yoda, Star Wars, yes. And Obi-Wan in Star Wars, right? What about in a recent movie we've seen? Any recent movies or stories that you've seen? From Cinderella to Jason Bourne. Just think of any story that you've seen or can think of that's part of the, what? So who else would be that character in the story? All right, in Cinderella, let's take it one by one. Who's the? Fairy godmother, right? Fairy godmother, yep. What about the story of, what about the Avengers, that new Avengers movie that came out? Yeah, it could be Nick Fury. Yeah, he plays that role. Cool. So, 3-part recipe. I love 3-part presentations because you can start out with an agenda and you can say, okay, we're here today. We're here today to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that we typically see or the challenges that we know exist today. And then we're going to talk about a solution that I think is going to really help you, and we can share with you other customers or other people that have taken this path before, they've landed successfully. And then we're going to talk about exactly how, the plan, how are you going to get from where you are today to where you'd like to go. So this is a 3-part proven formula or recipe for a great presentation. And so Steve Jobs has a 5-part story. And so the only changes there Steve Jobs used was he starts with a story, then he goes to the problem, then he goes to the solution, then he goes to a case study, and then he goes to a next steps. So what I've done is, not that I'm improving on Steve Jobs here, but I'm just simplifying that to 3 steps, because I can't even remember 5 things. And within these buckets, there are miniature or micro stories that you could talk about. For example, the current state, the typical challenges, what are your goals, speaks about the future. And what David Hutchins was talking about earlier, there are cards in that deck that you can draw upon to basically create bases in your presentation or slides that you want to stand on and talk about. Now, this is a simplified arc of any sales presentation that I've been on. So right now what I'd like you to do is think about your people, think about the change that you want them to make, and start to maybe outline, bullet point a framework or an agenda of a presentation that you'd like to create to a certain group of people so that you can take everything that we talked about today and now you can leave this room with an agenda or a recipe that will help you bring this into action, into your world, into your job, into your business. So what I'd like you to do is spend 3 minutes writing out the agenda of what you'd want to have in your presentation. All right? And then I'm going to have you choose someone else who you haven't spoken to, and I want you to share with each other, take turns, the agenda that you've written up. So they can see it and you can see theirs. So why don't we take 3 minutes to write out your agenda. What is our current situation like? Is it tolerable? Can we live with it? Is it untenable? What's our current state? So as Rafiki, holding up a mirror to the Lion King, saying, look at yourself, remember who you are, sort of that reflection, looking at the current state, is a very, very powerful thing to do in a presentation, in a sales discussion, in a discussion of change. Talk about the current state. How many people does this affect? How much revenue does this impact? What does this mean that things are the way they are? Don't underestimate the power of the force, Luke. No, don't underestimate the power of talking about the current state.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
So one of the things, Phil Oswald's here. You'll hear from Phil later today. Client for 10 years and a lot of great discussions. And I went to him and I said, I don't know about you, I get bored of people. You sit there, let me tell you how smart we are with the solution, and this is what you should be doing. And my preference is always, how do I bring him into that dialogue, right? How do I get him involved in, we've done our due diligence, here's what we're thinking, what do you think? And one thing we came up with was a canvas that said, here's kind of we've done our homework, we've done our due diligence, here's what we're thinking, what do you think? So instead of we're the smartest person in the room, and the previous firm he was with, they get paid to be the smartest people in the room. So instead of doing that,
yeah.
What do you think of this? Let's kind of collaborate on it together.
That's actually the most powerful moment in any sales presentation. When you say, gosh, we just saw this, right? We saw this together. What do you think this would enable for you? So what does that question do? What does that question do? How is that question impacting? And it actually has them put words into the air, into the world that clarifies for them their mind is going there.
But I want to, yes and.
Yes,
another
and.
Great book.
Yeah.
Yes and. I want to build on that.
Yeah.
It wasn't just we have the solution, how do you think this would fit in your world? It's we have a part of the solution, let's work together for you to bring the other part. I don't have all the answers.
Of course.
I have part of the answers. I want you involved.
Thank you for that, for clarification. Most sales presentations, I hate when I hear this. Oh, we have an end-to-end solution, or this is like the solution to your problem. And that's just BS, because customers have a lot of problems. This is just one piece of a much bigger scenario that you're helping them with, right? We're not solving all problems here. So I think what you're talking about is honing in on how they envision using this piece to a much bigger life that they're trying to create.
They brought their unique perspective in. One, and it goes without saying, Greg's been kind enough to talk about, sales. I think this applies to almost anything you're trying to convey to a target audience, right? And you brought up ideas or a different perspective or different process of doing something. I've just seen a lot more success in getting buy-in, and that's interesting. We haven't thought about it that way. Or we tried this and that part of it worked and let's build on that. And so the solution part, I would caution you in going in with your perception of, you remember the cabin conversation we had earlier today? Right, you know the cabin. You may know part of the cabin, but they just, where they're coming from, they could be really valuable in kind of building that out with you.
Thank you. So I'd like everybody now to stand up and find someone who you haven't really chatted with yet or you'd like to. And why don't you share with them, take turns and share the agenda of your presentation. I hope this was valuable to you. Hope you got some good ideas from this.